Good afternoon, good evening. Once again, it's on. Relentless. I'm gonna keep coming. I told you every day. I'm gonna start this off with Joshua chapter 1, verse 9, where God was speaking to Joshua and He told him, "Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest." Ironically, that was like that's the first tattoo that I got. That's on my arm. I know it's kind of hard to see. I remember when I first, started making changes in my life, and I started, reading the scriptures, and I started with Revelations, ironically, but then I started from the beginning, and I went to the Old Testament, and I remember reading, I can't believe it might have been Exodus or Deuteronomy, where there's some of the Ten Commandments, and you know, God was, telling, and Moses was passing the law, and he was telling his people, you're not supposed to have any markings or cuttings on yourself. I was like, oh man, I got tattoos, and dang, I didn't know, but that's what helped me understand why Christ, had to come down and down the cross and do these things for us because a lot of these things were done out of ignorance. We didn't know at the time. Uh, Episode 7, politics as usual. The irony in all this, I share a personal story with y'all. My regular job, my day to day, I got written up today for having my Bible on post. They're real strict about, distractions and things like that. And I get it. It's business. It's not personal. You know what I mean? I understand that. But, I wasn't even reading. I had it open, but, it came. But, again, like I said, my heart's in the right place. I know God's in control. And, as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, it's going to work out for the best. But, yeah, again, Joshua 1:9, check it out. I remember it was a few years back. A friend of mine's, his father had passed away, and this is 2017 when I first started reading the scriptures and you know trying to make changes in my life. And I remember like going to his dad's funeral, and his father was very close to me. So he was the guy that, so I told you I was raised in the church, and he was the guy that used to teach Sunday school. He was the deacon for the church. But anyway, I wanted to speak at his funeral, but I wasn't allowed to speak. They let my mother speak, but they didn't let me speak. It's all right, like I said, you can't silence his voice. I'm not gonna be stopped, regardless. Um, but with that said, it just it had me go back and reflect on things, and that when you have that opportunity, you have to take it. And if you don't have that opportunity, you got to make it. You make that opportunity. Um, I don't know if y'all paying attention to what's going on in the news. Like there's a lot of different things going on. And I told y'all, as far as like me, um, I lean more towards the red side than the blue because I'm conservative. My nature, especially as I get older, as far as my belief system. Doesn't mean I don't see discrepancies on both sides. I do, and I'm gonna call it out on both sides. Like on the red side, the side that I kind of lean towards, the main discrepancy I see what's going on with this whole Jeffrey Epstein situation with Donald Trump. How they say in the NFL, fumble. They fumbled it big time. If you're not going to release the information or speak on this information, don't say that you're going to do this stuff. Your word is the most important thing that you have. Especially as a man. What Scarface said. All I have in this world is my word, and I'm not going to break them for nobody. So as a man, if you're not able to keep your word, That's like I said, I can't go too much into details because you know I'm a federal contractor, so I kind of have ties with the government. But with that said, this is a free country, and we all have free speech as long as you're respectable, not derogatory, not directing negative actions or anything like that. But yeah, the way they handled this whole situation, with this Epstein, it's just wrong. Like I said, it's to me, it's a distraction, and like I said, if you're going to come out and say you're going to release this information, then stand 10 toes down on it. If you're not, then don't bring it up. Don't bring it up in the first place. With that said, I give you a little history with politics with me personally. Like I remember in 2008, I was I run. You know what? The first election I voted in was actually in 2004 because, and I remember I told you this is why I say I'm independent because in '04 I remember it was John Kerry and it was George Bush Jr. And at the time I was working at Arlington Cemetery, and I used to see, like, I was right near the main gate, and I used to see the list of all the dead bodies that were coming in. This was around the time doing the Iraq War and Afghanistan and stuff like that. And I would see the ages 18, 23, and I could tell by some of the names that some of these people were black folk, but even the white folk. I'm looking at all these people. They never got a chance to live their life, and they're being sacrificed for what? But long story short, in that election, I voted. I actually voted for John Kerry. I didn't vote who was a Democrat. I didn't vote for George Bush, for George Bush Jr. He infuriated me with some of the things with Hurricane Katrina. Remember Kanye West? George Bush does not care about black people. Remember that? And I felt like I was doing the right thing at the time. But I also remember doing the elections where, like looking back, it helped me understand why Bush won that election. This was 2004 again. Is because he was sorry, he was basically he took a stand. I remember one of the main controversies of that election was gay marriage, and George Bush said marriage is between a man and a woman. Basically, is what the scriptures say. And John Kerry, he wouldn't give a direct answer, and that kind of like he flip flopped on a lot of issues. One thing to be a leader is, and it's funny. I wrote this down earlier too because I thought about it when I got written up for having my Bible on post, and I wasn't upset, with the supervisor or anything like that. I said, part of being a leader is sometimes you have to be the bad guy. If that brings out the best in everyone else, if it increases the quality of production, you look at The Last Dance with Jordan, he wasn't always the good guy. But again, I digress. I don't want to talk about sports right now. But yeah, the very first election I voted in was '04. I voted John Kerry Democratic. And George Bush ended up winning because he showed stability. He took a stand. Even if you didn't agree with his stance, he took a stand instead of flip flopping, trying to please everybody. And you fast forward to 2008, when Barack Obama first ran for president, and I fell for the okie doke. I voted for him. I was like, okay, man, this dude's articulate, charismatic. You know what I'm saying? Light skinned brother representing black family. I'm like, okay, this dude actually has a legitimate shot to do this. And he ended up getting in there and doing it. So no disrespect to him, but as time went on, as he was in office, if you go back and look, it was a lot of tragedies that happened when he was in office. You could fast forward, go back. Remember Mike Brown? I think that was in St. Louis. Dude that got shot by the police. Remember Trayvon Martin? All these brothers getting capped. All that stuff happened under Barack Obama. He didn't say nothing except when he had that little fruit speech. When he came out, was like, well, if I had a son, he probably looked like Trayvon. That wasn't bringing him back. He had all this feminine energy around him. Yeah, like I said, you can't control your scenarios, but it's like, yo, you know, we was caught up with the okie doke. We thought he was gonna do one thing, he ended up doing something else. Big, big, big disappointment. And I'm not going to give him a pass because he looks similar to me. I'm going to call a spade, straight up. You know, they give these dudes, you know, a pass, and he gets the most leniency. And I'm like, if you go back and look at his, like you had 12 years. You had 2 terms. It's like us as a people, we get so caught up in the imagery. And y'all voted for that dude, not because of him. Y'all voted for him because of Michelle. Y'all voted for him because he had a black wife and he had black daughters. Like I said, I got soldiers to raise in this. You know? I got a 10-year-old son to raise in this. And I got a 26-year-old who I'm trying to, you know, get back in touch with and create the bonds with. That dude did absolutely nothing. The only people that benefited when he was in office was the Rainbow Coalition. That's it. And I believe it's some reasons behind that too. There were certain things that came out about him and his background, which is why his wife is currently airing him out on her podcast. If you listen to some of the things Michelle Obama been saying about him, it's been all negative. I'm here for it too. I ain't whatever. You know, his oldest daughter, I believe she's in acting, and you know, excuse me, I believe she's trying to direct movies and stuff like that. And she basically dropped her last name. They don't want anything to do with this. So what's really going on? This y'all hero? This who y'all worship? Dude's a hypocrite. And like I said, I can say I voted for him. But I realized by the time 2012 came around, that second election, I said, hold up. This is something ain't smelling right here. What's going on here? Every time y'all want to push y'all little causes, y'all use us to do it. And I wish unfortunately, I see lately it's been a lot of black women that's been falling for this. Some black men too. That's been, you know, falling for this okie doke political stuff where y'all basically use politicians and y'all replace God with them. You replace the leadership of your husband with your daggone president or whoever you want to vote for. And same thing with these dudes. Y'all realize, you know, I don't want to, how that term go? Happy life, happy wife. Man, bump that crap, man. Happy spouse, happy house. Y'all dudes, man, should be ashamed of yourselves. Like I said, as a man, either you stand for something or you fall for anything. I'm just trying to do my part. I'm not going to sit here and be silent and invite I'm not going to do that. Like I said before, part of being a leader, sometimes you got to be the bad guy. You're not going to be liked by everybody. That's okay with me. I'm used to being solo dolo anyway. I'm in here by myself, unless my son is here with me. So I'm good with that. But at the end of the day, like I said, I know I did my part. But yeah, I was very, very disappointed. Very disappointed with Barack Obama. But don't get it twisted. I'm going to put it to you like this. In my line of work, I've been around a lot of, you know, politicians and famous people. And look, I'm going to do my job. I take my job serious. I'm going to do my job regardless. That means if I'm going to put my life on the line to protect these people, guess what? I'm going to do that. Especially even if I didn't vote for them. Why? Because, of course, it's always God first. But then, my country and what I do, my livelihood, I take that very serious. So I don't want you to think this is some anarchist type of crap. Nah. But again, my ancestors fought for the right for me to say what I'm saying right now. And I brought up Joshua because Joshua was a warrior. Joshua was a fighter. He was different from Moses. And I told people, I told him at the time when my friend's father had passed away, I said, yo, y'all looking at Joshua. I know my previous pastor was preaching. I looked at them. So my mother, I said, I always looked at that generation like that was Moses' generation. If you know the story of Moses, you know that once they got free from Egypt, they was in the wilderness for like 40 years, going around in circles. They never got a chance to see the promise. God showed Moses the promised land, but he never set foot in it. It was Joshua who led God's people to the promised land and fought them. And I believe that's something from a spiritual aspect. There's a spiritual element to this that I believe the previous generation of baby boomers aren't aware of, because they were indoctrinated with so much fear from the civil rights movement. Probably why I got the little Malcolm X joint on right now. Like, they was indoctrinated with so much fear that, they operated from that. But again, like I said previously, one of my favorite verses, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power and of love and of a sound mind. Google it. Like I told you, I'm not good with. I believe that's in. First or Second Timothy. But like I said, hey, Google it, man. We in the technology age. I'm not getting caught up with the superficial things. Google, for God have not given us a spirit of fear, but a power and of love and of a sound mind. And you'll see what I'm talking about, because that spirit of fear that comes from below, that don't come from above. So I know as long as your heart's in the right place, God got you on that. But yeah, it's like, all the videos I talked about, I dropped hints, with politics and stuff like that, but I never really fully went in on politics. Like I told you, hey, look, I voted Democrat in the past too. But guess what? These Bammers act like they own us as a people. That's why I say, yo, get off that demon crap plantation. That's why every time an election cycles come up, they don't do anything for us. We already got y'all vote. Lack of respect. You big dummy, Red Fox voice. I mean, when is enough? All y'all takes is what you see instead of what you feel. And like I said, actions speak louder than words. Y'all sit there, y'all worship Barack Obama like he's freaking Jesus Christ. Ain't nothing godly about him. If you look at his actions and some of the stuff he said. But he ain't the only one. I'm just saying in general because I know how my people act. I said that's why his wife is currently airing him out. His own wife. And don't get me wrong, part of me, I almost kind of feel sorry for him. Because it's like, as a man, it's like, dang, Joe, like, you could be the president of the United States. And it don't matter. It's just not enough for black women. I'm going to say that for another day. As far as our sisters and how the lack of respect that they give us and the lack of appreciation because they caught up in this illusion or this superficial world. I'm going to say that don't worry, it's coming. It is. But, one thing at a time, and, like I said, 2012, that's why I woke up. I said, you know what, this mess, this dude is like a freaking used car salesman. Real smooth, very charismatic. The imagery is there. But your actions don't match, bruh. And I'm not trying to be, because like I said, I have a lot. I don't want to say a lot, but I have some Caucasian friends. I look at people, I go by your energy within. The appearance is what you physically see, Same thing with the women. There's a bunch of beautiful white women out here too, Just what, and as far as the white dudes, I feel y'all pain. Welcome to our world. As black men. It's like y'all become public enemy number one now. But so I don't want to make this a racial thing, but I can only speak from my perspective and my experiences. And like I said, 2012, I started to wake up to see things for what they were. Fast forward 2016. You know, that's when Trump came in. People seen him as this daggone, you're fired, you know, the TV show guy. And, you know, they remember from boxing and stuff like that. And then, you know, you had Hillary Clinton running against him. I've said many times, these Bamas, I'm talking about Democrats, they've had a temper tantrum since 2016 because their candidate didn't win. So they've done everything to demonize Trump. Everything. Orange man bad. You know, he's a racist. Yeah, really? Go back and listen to Judgment Day 2000. I had the Method Man shirt on the other day. There's a skit on that joint. It's called the Donald Trump skit. Wu-Tang. Raekwon, Cocoa Brothers did a song called Black Trump. It was so many, yeah, they was giving the dude shot. Now all of a sudden this dude is this racist dude. Same guy that funded Jesse Jackson. And I'm not saying he's a saint, but I'm saying when Jesse Jackson ran for president in 84, I was a little kid back then, but I remember that. Donald Trump actually funded Jesse Jackson's campaign for president. A lot of people don't know that. I've done my research. He did. With Mike Tyson, you know, when they said he was a rapist and stuff like that, Donald Trump was the guy who came on Arsenio Hall. He was on the Arsenio Hall show. And he said, you know, he felt like he was being railroaded. The truth wasn't being revealed. But, you know, long story short, you know, that they should have some charity fight, like donate, excuse me, his fight donations to charity. And I see my brother commented, yeah, I see you just got home, man. Hey, look, thanks for the love. Thanks for the support. Hey, check out the last video, big bro. I gave you a shout out at the end. My last joint, Thug Life joint. But anyway, back to this one. Yeah, 2016, Trump ran. People didn't take him serious. Everybody just knew Hillary was going to win. They knew it. They knew it. They knew Hillary was going to win. You know? But then all of a sudden, you know, at the last second, it was like somebody had died. Trump actually won because their candidate was polarized. They treat it like it's a monarchy. Like, okay, it's this time. And ironically, I remember in 2016, I was still like, I'm still neutral. So I'm looking at it from a Democratic standpoint. I was like, that's when they should have went behind Joe Biden. Before he became a vegetable, when he was still mentally, he still had his mental faculties in place. That's when they should have went behind Joe Biden in 2016 if they was going to have a legitimate change. But they went behind Hillary. They said, no, this is her time. This is this and all this stuff. And these feminists have had a temper tantrum ever since. And I'm sick and tired of these black women being used as mules for their causes, for these bitter white feminists. Yeah, I said it. I'm not going to bite my tongue. It's the truth. They're using black women as causes, and all it's doing is destroying our community. The least married, the most in debt. And oh, we're the most educated. No, you're the most in debt. You're the most enrolled in school. You're not the most educated. Educated is not the answer. I'm gonna give like some of these women. I'm gonna drop a little hint for some of the things I'm gonna talk about when I talk about some of the ladies. Newsflash: men don't care about your accolades. We don't care about your degrees. We don't care about that stuff. We care about, of course, looks, but beyond that, how you treat us, how you carry yourself. You know, all you got to do is read Proverbs. I go back to the scriptures. Proverbs chapter 31, when they talk about a woman of virtue. It's right there. There's some other scriptures too. Hey, read the book of Ruth. Read about the story of Esther. There's books in the Bible where they talk about women too. I'm gonna save all that for another day, but I will just drop, you know, a little snippets because I see, like I said before, especially on the blue side, it's like they've been having a temper tantrum ever since 2016. Since they candidate, now all of a sudden, since they candidate didn't win, now all of a sudden, Orange Man is public enemy number one. He's a racist. Now he's the grand dragon of the KKK, and people are falling for it. But again, I look, I don't vote for people. I vote for policy. What fits my life. You know, I suggest everyone else do the same. I'm not telling you to vote for. Because trust me, I'm gonna call the discrepancies out on the other side again. You know, it's coming up. Bear with me. Uh, Fast forward to 2020. That was a weird year, man. Very weird year. That's when I went through a lot of personal turmoil in my life. And like I said, I might touch on that another day. But I don't believe in coincidences. I knew something was up when the year started off with Kobe Bryant dying. Yeah, I knew something was up with that. Then a couple of months, all of a sudden, you got COVID out the blue. Everything shut down. Now all of a sudden, everybody got to wear a mask. Monkey see, monkey do. I remember when I was a little kid, it was I liked a lot of different cartoons. I'll speak on that later on when I talk about one of my lighter days where I talk about video games. I'm gonna do that when my son come over here. But when I was younger, one of the cartoons I liked was Garfield and Friends because I like the art. I used to draw when I was younger, so I like the artwork with the eyes, how they did stuff. Anyway, it was a phrase that was on that joint. They used to be like, "If it's shown on TV, it must be true." And I'm like, "Oh, now Dr. Fauci and all these other people telling, oh, we got to wear these medical masks." Not last time I checked, as humans, we breathe out oxygen. We breathe in carbon monoxide. I'm sorry, we breathe out carbon monoxide. We breathe in oxygen. I'm sorry. When you're wearing a mask for like 8, 10, 12 hours a day, especially with the children, all of the stuff you're breathing out is not getting out. It's not helping. If you think for a second that a cloth mask is going to solve these issues when they done came up with this stuff in a freaking lab, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I'm just saying, it was like a litmus test for almost like for mind control. If we could control the public, it was sickening. Everybody walking around here with masks on. What happened? Why ain't wearing masks no more? What happened? Out the blue, it just went away. Now you got to wear masks. Okay, because they said I ain't got to wear a mask no more. I said it back then in 2020. I say these Bahamas, they don't make the air that we breathe. They're not God. They was on some God complex type crap. And y'all, not everybody, but a lot of people fell for that mess, hook, line, and sinker. It was utterly disgusting from what I was seeing. It was some weird stuff that happened with that election that year too. I remember Biden being in the basement. It was all dark and shaded. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, this dude got the most votes ever. This dude got the charisma of a tennis ball. I'm just saying that's part of it. You know, as far as, you know, being president and, you know, like I said, it's a certain level of salesmanship where you have to, you know, advertise yourself and, you know, broadcast yourself. And it's like, yo, this dude ain't it, man. You know, a lot of people was talking about, you know, I forgot what they called it. It was a certain type of pen that he used, automated pen. But, you know, like I said, I'll go back, look, and I'll touch on that later. But, yeah, 2020 was a very odd year. On a lighter note, I'm not even going to talk about that fluke NBA Finals that year. When the basketball season, when the season was shut off for like 6 months, then all of a sudden they go back and was playing again. And then magically the Lakers win. Ironically, the same year Kobe dies. It's deeper than what you think. I'll touch on that a little bit more. The beginning of the year, I remember the night before, like LeBron had just passed Kobe on the scoring. The top 5 in scoring. I think Kobe was number 3, and then LeBron had moved to number 3, and Kobe had, you know, congratulated him, sent him a tweet. You know, congrats, you know, keep moving forward. The very next day after LeBron passed Kobe on the scoring on the scoring record. Kobe died the very next day. That never sat right with me. And I've done my I'm gonna touch on some of that stuff too, because later on, these are things from a spiritual aspect, things that I've done like some research on that some people might be upset with, but I don't care. Because like I said at the beginning, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Decide if you want to hear the nice free country. You know, but back to the political standpoint. Fast forward to 2024. Here come Orange Man bad again. Thought he was done. They done railroaded this man, had this man take mugshot pics. They had him in court trying to drain him financially so he couldn't fund his campaign. They done shot at this dude. My brothers was like, yo, I can relate to a lesser extent of what he's going through. It was wild what he went through. Then on the other side, they was pushing this chick who was not qualified at all. At all. The only reason why she was vice president and why they picked her, because literally the biggest people, like black women vote Democrat at like, I believe, a 95% clip. So they knew they had to get somebody in there from a symbolic standpoint so Biden could get their support, because that's what they're trying. Even though realistically, I see things from a neutral standpoint. Realistically, if Democrats were smart, they'd have went with Bernie Sanders. They screwed him twice. They screwed Bernie Sanders in 2016 with Hillary, and they screwed Bernie Sanders again in 2020 with Joe Biden. He wouldn't have picked. I don't know if they like the way he looked or what. Not that I am a Bernie bro or support him. I told you I'm neutral, but I'm very observant. I've seen on all sides. If they were smart and they really wanted a shot, they should have went with Bernie Sanders, because he was the one that had the momentum. You even had what's the chick name? AOC. She was backing him, even though I'm not a fan of hers either. But I'm just like I said, from a neutral standpoint, like the energy and the support was actually behind Bernie Sanders. But you know, the status quo is gonna pick who they want to pick. You know, and you know, when when they had that first debate last June, and Biden was like all over the place, to the point where Trump was looking at him like, when he was like, "We beat COVID." Yeah, that mess was funny. And I'm sorry, and Trump was like, "Yeah, you beat it to death." I was cracking up, man. I'm like, this is our leader. This is the guy that's representing us on the world stage. You know, this is who y'all rocking with, because your grandmama said we vote Democrat. You want me to break it down and go back to the 60s when Lyndon B. Johnson passed that civil rights bill, because you know black folk was tearing it up, and they knew something. They had to give us something because we was wrecking shop. And he was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do this. And I'm gonna have these ninjas. I'm trying to keep it edited for the algorithm for YouTube. But y'all know what I'm trying to refer to. These M-bombs. I'm gonna have these M-bombs voting Democratic for the next 500 years." Lyndon B. Johnson said that. Look it up. We want to go back to the Dixiecrats, to who the real racists are in this country, and who support that mess. You know, you want to talk about Joe Biden when he was giving a speech to the head of the KKK when he died? You want to talk about that? You want to talk about when Hillary Clinton called all black men super predators? You want to talk about when Joe Biden said, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't black"? How dare you? Who the heck are you to regulate who's black and who ain't? Even though that's a shade, I'm gonna save all that for another point, you know. And y'all support that filth. This is why they don't respect us. This is why they don't respect us. Because they know you blindly gonna support that crap because your bitter grandmama told you to. When you gonna man up and make a decision for yourself? Or you going to run through life just being scared? You want me to go further back? And like I said, I'm not justifying it. But you want me to go back to Abraham Lincoln, who was a Republican, and what he did? You want me to talk about Martin Luther King and how black folk traditionally voted Republican because we were conservative by nature originally until Barack Obama came in there and started supporting the Rainbow Coalition, even though that rainbow was a symbol of God's covenant. After God flooded the planet, I'll touch on that with Noah's Ark and all that stuff, and then he showed that rainbow. He said this is a symbol that he would never destroy the planet like that again. That's what that rainbow initially stood for. And these bastards, they sit there, and I say bastards because I'm calling you what the Bible calls them. Bastards, you ain't God's children. It says that in the scriptures. These bastards, they done took what was God's covenant and then made it symbolize something else. Now, I'm not talking about the actions because, again, like I said, we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And ironically, I've worked in different job locations where I actually have some people who I consider friends of mine who actually live an alternative lifestyle. I'm not here to judge, but I know what the scriptures say. And I know what they've done. They've made a complete mockery of that crap. So all of a sudden, all the conservative beliefs that black folk initially had, you put a black face, as soon as you put Barack Obama in there, oh, it don't matter. Now all your beliefs go out the window because he's married to a black woman. He got black daughters. Y'all some chumps. That's all it takes, huh? Bama's ain't done nothing for us. The city's still in shambles. Yeah, this guy on my shirt, yeah, he's turning over in his grave. Martin Luther King rolling over in his grave. One of the last speeches Martin Luther King said was that I fear that I have brought my people into a burning house. He was talking about integration. Now he was pushing it so much. And there's nothing against Caucasian folk. But black folk, we never got a chance to establish ourselves in this country. We never got a chance to establish ourselves. It's like as soon as we get voting rights and, get something, all of a sudden now everything's mushed together. Go back and look at y'all know about the Oklahoma City bombers, Oklahoma and all that stuff? All these black businesses and stuff like that. Once upon a time, we did have things established. But it never got solidified. It was like the concrete was still moist. It never dried up, never got a chance to be solidified. They took the 1%, the elite 1%. Like some of these fake fraternities, what they push. These are these bougie elitists. It's ironic because I remember that was one of the things I used to call Obama. They say he's an elitist. And this is when I supported Obama. I used to laugh, think that was funny. Oh, they call him. They use anything with this dude. But looking back, I said, I see exactly what they mean. He wasn't never for us, but you know what? I'm gonna keep it real. I said I lean more towards the red side. I lean more towards the conservative side. Now I'm about to air them out because I'm nobody's fool. I don't know. They sit there and they push the scriptures and they push God's word, and they get all these white televangelists with these big congregations, stuff like that. It's supposed to be a separation of church and state. They use some of these churches and these big congregations to fund their campaigns. Their God ain't above. Their God is that money. These some fake conservatives. Like I said, their God is that money. I'm nobody's fool. And not to mention, I brought it up a little bit at the beginning with the whole Epstein thing. Yeah, that falls under Orange Man. That falls under, the way they handled that, they fumbled that big time. Big time. If you're going to sit there and cover stuff up and you're not going to bring up what really happened, then why bring it up in the first place like you're going to? Y'all going to talk about, oh, we're going to talk about what really happened to JFK. We're going to talk about what happened to Martin Luther King. Lies. You said whatever you wanted to say to get in there. So see, I'm fair. I called discrepancies. I told you, I'm an independent. I call discrepancies on both sides. Them last shots I was throwing, hitman, sharpshooter, that was for the red side. Because I aired out the blue side earlier too. But recently, I can't knock the blue for this. This is on the red side. They fumbled big time with this one. Especially when you talk about like abusing, children. And some of the stuff that they talk about what was going on with them fouls. I remember what the scripture said. Christ said it himself. He said, better that you would have a millstone about your neck and cast into the sea than to corrupt one of these little ones. And, I was listening to one of these other podcast shows I'm not going to mention. But a guy had brought up that verse in pertaining to, this whole Epstein situation. And what he was saying when he first read that verse, he thought it meant that was your punishment, put a stone around your neck and you're casting the sea. No, they were saying that God will be so angry with you if you try to corrupt one of these kids. It was better that you would be hidden in the bottomless pits of the ocean where he couldn't find you. That's how angry God will be with you for doing something like that. And it seems to be like there's some covering up going on. And last time I checked, it ain't the Democrats that's in office right now. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to hold up too much. Thanks for your time. I'm going to continue this part too. Like I said, I'm all around the board. I'm going to be a little serious today. Politics as usual, huh? Thanks for your time.